Hello, this is Eric and not Baus, and today I'm going to be assembling the Xproto-N case. So that's the new one here that allows graphics cards like the 3070, 3080 to actually have some breathing room. So I'm going to take this NR200 and change this to this. Now let's get started. So the NR200 is now disassembled. We have the SF750 Platinum series, and the fan auto turns off, and it doesn't go on unless the load is great enough for it to turn on. And I don't think it'll be great enough because I actually tweak everything for low power. This is gonna be a nice small cooler versus that large thing. And these fans right here, we don't need it. Open air, don't need a fan. Don't need this fan either. Here's the graphics card, 3070. And it has a small vent on the back, which will work together with that particular Xproto-N case that has a little bit of vent holes. And my motherboard is right here. So we got 32 gigs of Kingston HyperX RAM, 3600. We have a XPG 2 terabyte card. We have a Samsung 970 Pro drive, that's 1 terabyte. So 1 terabyte plus 2 terabytes. And of course I have another drive too I use. Gotta have storage for storing videos. So for starting out, what I'm gonna actually first do is bolt this bracket onto the power supply and put the power supply onto the casing right away. Then I'm gonna actually go back here and then put this here that holds an SSD to the device inside. I'll see it says number 5 screws. So I'll go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is number 5 screws to hold in your power supply. And a screwdriver was included in this package, which is really cool. I will have my own screwdriver ready, but I don't need it. So that's kind of neat. So the one thing that's going to be difficult about the assembly process is when connecting to the side of the case here, you're going to be fighting with gravity because it's not flat, the part you work with, and it's kind of opposite of what you see in the picture, because if we look here, this part is the part that's curved down. You can't just do anything except for lay against the wall. So if you want to flip the other way to this way, you have to change your point of view. That would be the easier way to assemble it. But for now, do one step at a time and deal with this first. I already have my wires ready for the power supply, so and now I gotta put it in here, and it has to go this way around. So you can see what I mean about the difficulty here. So what I did here to make assembly more simplified is actually stuck the screw all the way in before the power supply was in, and then changed my point of view to actually see where that screw hole was, and then started screwing in the first screw, and everything else, well, became quite simplified. And these, of course, are number 3 screws as per instructions. The K shape, this little K outwards, towards the little gap there. So I need to go this direction. Right here, let's see, number 4 screws. So I go in my packaging, count 4 down, 4 holes down. That would be these ones. So I think of this as a really chubby K, because here's the outer part of it. And this one's actually very simple compared to the power supply caddy to assemble on here. Most of you wouldn't have the cables connected for the power supply, but these are the cables I'm going to use, and I see it just as simple to just keep them reconnected, like keep them as is. So normally the instruction says to put the motherboard now, but to put the SSD after seems like a complicated and convoluted process if I put the motherboard now and have it in the way of the screw holes. So I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to install the SSD first. So I'm going to go this way because I see more of a gap, so I can put my wiring. So what I'm doing now is using the number 4 screws that I actually bolt on the caddy So I get the screws, as you see right here, and then I take the little rubber washer. So stick the screw through the hole and the rubber washer on the other side between the caddy and the storage device as per instructions. You could probably do this just fine without doing it this way, especially with an SSD, a spinning hard drive, HDD, sorry, would actually not work so nice because you could get vibration. So this is basically the rubber washers is to avoid vibration in your project. In my case, this is a Samsung 860 Pro 2 terabyte drive. I'm going to put everything in just lightly. This way I don't have to worry about if the screws aren't lined up quite perfectly, if you just let it bend loose before tightening it all the way. So before we go any further in this project, what I need to do is get the standoffs between the other side. So I need to get these on because I can't connect the motherboard without having these connected. And then it says in the instructions to connect these with number 3 screws. So I have to go back to number 3 cubby hole here, and I need to put these to the back side. And it looks the same either direction, so that's nice and simple. And I grab my number 3 screws and I start screwing all 6 in. There's 6 standoffs. I need a large standoff block here, 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 this large hole here, and on both sides of the power supply, one here, which this is in the way, and one down here. So one thing that simplifies where these little blocks go, you see that little square? Each of them has a little square outline where you put these blocks here, making it very, very simple. So if you have a little bit off, you'll just loosen the screw bit and straighten the block out to that actual square. You now need your motherboard. This is the motherboard one right here, copper standoffs. The other one is the riser cable. So now we have to get the motherboard copper standoffs installed onto the board, which happens to be only 4 of them, and then we can screw in the board. I'd recommend getting some sort of small little wrench to give a little bit of torque to this. Wait, I wonder. Unless, of course, they included one. There, so I have the one copper standoff right here, and it looks like I have a wrench for tightening. Okay, not a very good wrench, but because I can only get it slightly tight with that. But kind of cool that includes one. I'd like a better one though. There, you have the cables for your power supply in the way. It's going to be impossible to do, or more difficult. Slightly difficult, more difficult, but this is how easy it is. I pull the cables back a bit, and it slid down. Now to put those cables back in, that'd have been a bit of work and a bit of time. So I already had them in, and that's the way it's going to be. Now I get the number 4 screws. I already have them out actually right now. So connect the motherboard is number 4 screws to the motherboard. So this was A side that we just built. Now we have to go to B side. So the B side's the other side of the case. But if I look a step further, it says I have to flip this other side that I just built upside down. So the standoffs are facing up. Let's get these cables on the way so it's more flat. Okay, and now I'm gonna get this side, line it up. So you might be thinking, for these number 1 screws, we have a problem here because the tool that's included is this. Well, luckily it can be flipped around, and there we go. So your power button switch is just something fairly simple. You can buy these online. So to attach to your case, you're going to take this little ring off, unscrew that. And here's the part that connects to your motherboard, your power button switch, and LED. So this switch does have a light up. As a side note, you want your rubber gasket on this side right here, so it goes against your case so it doesn't slide around. That helps it grip better. I took off, and I'm going to put it behind it because you want to tighten it off, so tighten it on so it doesn't wiggle around. And to tighten it right on, I'm going to use a lineman plier. Small plier would work just fine. I don't want it sliding around. Then I'm going to stick this on here. It's the back end that needs to go on there. Please note that before you sandwich your case together, connect your power supply cable. So run it through. And you run it through the hole here in the case right there. Between the body itself. And you'll tighten this on with number 2 screws. So looking back at this point here, right before you actually attach the one side, it's best to run all your power cables between your sandwich parts to hide all your power cables, your riser cable. Attach your riser cable to the B side, and then try to figure out where you're running it to your graphics card slot. Once you get 2 in, you probably can stand it up if you need to, or find it more convenient. So for the PCI Express riser cable, you're going to need the number 4 screws, and then you're going to need to also use copper number 2s. They're included in the package. It's the last bin here. So I need to connect those 2. Plastic part out. This part faces out. And once you have it in place, just tighten her up. The riser cable would have been easier to do first, but I just loosened a couple of screws across here, the one side, and I was going to tighten them back. So I run it between the 2 boards. There's a little slot here, slit, between the sandwich here, and then ran it up to the other side, as you see right here. And just like that. Done. So next, you want to put the graphics card into your PCI Express slot. There's little fixture pieces here for your graphics card to actually hold in place tightly. And now the graphics card is not secure whatsoever, and that's what these are for. So both these are the same for the screw holes. It's just this looks like 1 screw hole card and a 2 screw hole card for extra security. So I actually found that number 2 screws and number 4 screws are actually thread compatible. So that's kind of cool. They're just different heads. So the one can recess down into the hole and the one is flat. I can't know if we can see that or not. But the one has a curve and the one is more flat on its head. I'm going to use the one with 2 because my card is a dual slot and I just want to have a little more security. But I'm going to deviate from regular instructions and use super long screws for one of the brackets here. So what I'm going to do is get two small screws for the top with that little curved lip. I believe these are number 2s with the screws that go nicely here. And leave it loose for now. And these ones, the bracket, you can see down there. You don't want the screws too long or else they'll interfere with the graphics card. Now, there's also a small bracket right here and I'll definitely use long screws for that. If I want to hold it secure, this part of the graphics card, I'll want to actually slide it between this and the case, and this will hold this end nice and snug to the case. So we need a long screw for this one. The hard part is getting this little metal piece in the spot, which is actually surrounded by all those other little pieces. Maybe it would have been easier if I didn't put the power button first, but I did. To take this out, slide it in, and then screw it in. So if I do the riser card first, slide that riser card in. Now, I got my bracket on one side, bracket on the other side. So now I can line this up. Now I can tighten the top up. So I'm going to do the top first. The one holding right there. And now I can tighten up the riser cable and then that side. It's not a great situation trying to read the instructions and understand it the way they actually label it out, because they try to do too few pages rather than saying it has to be this order or this order. Now, if I straighten this up. So, if we look closely right here, you'll see for the graphics card, it doesn't line up where you'd expect it. It's this lower area, the screw, and down that side as well. Okay, so after a lot of coaxing, I finally got some wiring decent. It's kind of hard to actually hide everything because you have to hide it between the body and underneath the motherboard, which means I had to loosen some screws off. And of course for the SSD, it's easier to wire everything, pre-wire, before you sandwich this together. And now I gotta figure out my brackets. So I'll probably want to put this bracket with the USB ports on the side closest to my motherboard with the USB ports. So something like this. But now, what I need to do is get it screwed in. So the USB ports here comes with a bag of screws and everything else you may need. And this is a separate upgrade from the regular case itself. So the white spacers are going to go between the metal and the screw holes. So to clean up my wiring, and because I'm not going to use the audio on the side of my case, and I'm going to use it directly from the motherboard, this can go away. Now what I'm left with is USB. What actually I'd like to do is actually remove one of these USBs, but they seem to be soldered on. Because I have a USB Type-C I want to add somehow, but I'll figure that out later. So I'm not the best at actual tightening up wiring, but it was one heck of a hassle trying to do it. I had actually put a lot of the wiring between the actual parts here. I just put my Type-C extra adapter here because there's no place to actually connect it. Too bad I didn't have more. Glowing RAM and everything else. Open case design, well, doesn't look bad. So for my conclusion of this Xproto-N case, it's not for everyone. It does require quite a bit of finesse. It wouldn't be as bad, mind you, if once you actually have the idea of what to do. That's why I try to tell you, before you sandwich this together, try to run your wires, and that'll save you a world of difficulty. So as long as your fans are quiet, it's not half bad, but once those fans start turning, especially my graphics card, it's not quite as nice because I can hear the noise more since it's not encased. However, since it's an open air design, you don't need as many fans like this Corsair Platinum SFX that actually has fan control, doesn't turn on unless you're over 50% power usage, is perfect to use because you'll hardly ever hear it as long as your computer doesn't have too much power draw. This CP cooler with my Be Quiet Silent Wings 3, replacing the cheaper version of the fan that was on here. With fan control, just absolute silence, just wonderful. So the only thing that's really making any noise is the graphics card's fan. So generally I actually run my computer underneath the desk, so instead of having this face towards me with the power button where the noise is coming out when the fans spin up, I just turn this against the wall and that removes most noise, and then reach over, press the button. Some people might not like that the wires go up and out, but this is a perfect situation for underneath your desk, and then just clean up your wires underneath your desk so everything goes all together and you'll have a clutter fest of wires. Replacing a CPU is just like any other case, but you don't have to take the case off, so it's a matter of removing your cooler, put a new one on. Very simple. Power supply for the cables, since the run between it, that is going to be a bit of difficulty because you can't just remove it apart. You have to look at removing one side completely and take out all the screws on one side, which might mean removing your graphics card first, probably the easiest way. Remove all the screws, take apart your sandwich design, remove these top and bottom. So just know if you plan to do many changes, it can be a bit of work versus a regular case, a bit more work. But the design, the RGB can be quite rewarding. It's actually quite nice when I turn my computer on because I have all this RGB light from this graphics card, reflecting off the walls. Like my computer on? Yeah, it's on. It looks pretty cool. Leave a comment below. What are your thoughts? Do you think this is a great case for you? It has a riser cable. I got the 4.0 because it makes a lot more sense than the 3.0 riser cable and much better for compatibility. It costs more, but at least make it future-proof, not have issues that you have motherboard with PCI Express 4.0, graphics card with PCI Express 4.0, especially if you upgrade in the future and then find it doesn't work because you don't have the newer riser cable, so you can upgrade and then experience problems because of that. So make sure you get the new one, the 4.0, and save yourself a world of problems down the line if you plan to upgrade. Thank you again for watching, and have yourselves a most wonderful day.
This is not BIOS, tech and hardware.
So some of you might be wondering, why didn't I get the Xproto Mini? Well, the reason I didn't get the mini case that they have is because I need a flex power supply, and here in Canada where I am, flex power supplies are really, really expensive. Secondly, I don't think there's any, at least that I can think of offhand, that have a zero fan noise mode. Of course, I could always change out the fan and do all that fun stuff and choose an Audiio 40mm fan, replace it with a low fan speed headers, connect to my motherboard, solve that issue for the most part. And then again, of course, my graphics card will be hanging out. It's kind of cool because it has a little suitcase part, so we can lift it up. So if I'd actually like to go that way eventually to have a smaller graphics card and a smaller case.